Hello my YouTube friends, this is Richard, founder of Short-Term Rental University and Airbnb Superhost. Today's video is answering a question that I see in the Facebook groups all the time, and that is basically, should I accept somebody for a long-term rental? So here's my overall thesis. If you're in the short-term rental game, you should lean short-term rental, but like in everything else, there are exceptions. There are tax benefits to being in the short-term rental business. If you have less than 7 days on average in your stay, you get certain tax treatment, and you should speak to your CPA about that. That may alone be reason enough to not even consider long-term rentals. I personally believe that the rental income that I receive from short-term rentals is 2 to 3 times more than I do on a long-term basis, and therefore if I were to accept a long-term rental, it's at my cost. I'm reducing my income. And I do recognize there are exceptions to the rule, and so I make them, as should you. That said, I've never had anybody stay more than 2 weeks. I would rather have the place be empty. There's less wear and tear, there's less utility, there's less friction in my team. So sometimes a place to be empty is okay. And if I'm making 2 to 3 times the amount that I would make normally during long-term rentals, having some vacancy is welcome. Let's talk about some of the long-term rentals that I've seen asked about and that I would consider, and then help you make your own decision. The first is seasonality. If there's a period of time where your place is completely vacant, it's dormant, then you may want to consider a long-term rental if somebody comes along who fits all of your other criteria, who you think is going to be a good citizen and a good guest, and is going to pay you an income amount that is, above the long-term rate and perhaps below the short-term rate. But it doesn't make any sense in my mind to accept somebody for less than they would be paying for a long-term rental, even though it's better than zero. If your place would normally rent for $1,000 a month and you rent it on short-term rentals and you get $2,000 or $3,000 a month, if somebody wants to come and rent your place for $750 a month, that just doesn't make any sense. So I wouldn't do that. If somebody says, but I'll pay you $1,500 a month, and you look at your calendar and it's vacant and it's the slow season and it's dead of winter and it's a beach community, absolutely, why wouldn't you do that? That makes a lot of sense. But I need everybody to start thinking about, the opportunity cost of taking somebody long-term for the surety, right? The security of knowing that you have some income in, and start to be a little more entrepreneurial. Take that chance, take that gamble. You may rent it for more money, less certainty, but more money if you turn that person down. So a couple of flags regarding long-term stays in your short-term rental. I've read online that different communities and municipalities consider somebody a legal tenant if they've stayed more than, say, 28 days or 30 days, and then you might have to evict them. So that's not good. I'm not doing short-term rentals to have to evict somebody because they're not paying rent. I had that when I was doing long-term rentals. I'm trying to avoid that in short-term rentals. That's one of the perks. The second thing is, if somebody's open-ended and they don't know when they're leaving, well, that might sound exciting. I've got all this rental income, but wait a minute. We were doing this only because it was slow season and they were going to fill that void. But if they don't know when they're leaving, well, I want to make 3 times more money when it gets to be high season. I don't want to be renting to that person for less, so that doesn't work. To summarize, I don't like to do it because there's tax advantages for me to have people that stay 7 days or less. 2, I like that turnover and somebody leaving and them not becoming, part of my everyday routine. I like the fact that they're not long-term tenants. I like the fact that they don't have any rights to stay and I don't have to evict them. That was all back in my day when I was a long-term landlord, and I specifically moved to short-term rentals for that. Similarly, I very much like the fact that I make 2.5 to 3 times more money on short-term rentals versus long. So do me a favor, subscribe.